The wind bit through the sails as the longship cut through the icy waters of the North Sea. The waves crashed against the hull, foaming and hissing, as if warning those aboard of the dangers that lay ahead. But the Vikings did not fear the storm. They thrived in it. For generations, they had been born to the roar of the sea, the call of distant lands, and the thrill of exploration. Their sagas would become legend, whispered across fjords, forests, and firelit halls for centuries to come. Picture a night sky blanketed with stars, their cold light glinting on the shields lining the longship. Oars dipped rhythmically into the water, creating a steady cadence that echoed across the waves. The warriors aboard were not just raiders. They were storytellers, navigators, and dreamers, guided by the gods Odin and Thor. They believed the world was alive, every mountain, river, and storm imbued with spirit and power, and they sought to honor it through deeds of courage and conquest. At the helm stood Eric, a young jarl whose eyes reflected the stormy sea. He had inherited not only his father's longship, but also his burning ambition. Eric dreamed of lands untouched, treasures unseen, and stories that would live long after his death. Tonight, he would sail into unknown waters, chasing a whisper of a kingdom said to be rich beyond imagination, a land told of in hushed tones around the fires of coastal villages. The journey was perilous. Icebergs drifted like silent sentinels, and fog clung to the waves like a living shroud. Yet the Vikings pressed on. They read the stars, the winds, and the flight of birds, navigating by instinct and the wisdom of countless ancestors. Each night, fires were lit on the deck, both to ward off the chill and to honor the gods. The men sang, their voices rising and falling with the rhythm of the sea, chanting sagas of heroes and battles, of love and loss, of gods and monsters. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a lookout cried out, "Land!" A dark silhouette emerged through the mist, jagged cliffs and forests that promised both danger and opportunity. The men cheered, for sighting land was not just survival, it was destiny. Eric's heart raced as he ordered the ship closer, his mind already spinning with the tales that would be told upon their return. But the land was not empty. Smoke rose from distant villages, and the sound of horns echoed faintly in the wind. Eric knew this was not merely a settlement. It was a challenge, a test of strength, courage, and cunning. The Vikings anchored and crept ashore under the cover of night. They moved silently, their leather boots barely disturbing the grass, their axes ready. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every whisper of wind could signal danger. Then came the first clash, not with men, but with beasts. Wolves, larger and fiercer than any Eric had seen, emerged from the forests, their eyes glowing in the firelight. The Vikings fought with precision, every swing of an axe and thrust of a spear guided by years of training and the ferocity that ran in their veins. When the battle ended, the wolves had retreated, leaving the men standing, victorious but wary. Dawn revealed a land both beautiful and wild. Rivers glimmered like molten silver, forests stretched endlessly, and mountains rose like guardians from another world. Yet the beauty hid secrets, ruins from an older time, strange carvings along stone circles, and whispers of magic that seemed to dance in the morning mist. Eric could feel it, the spirits of the land, ancient and watchful, observing every step of their journey. The men explored, trading cautiously with the locals, learning their ways, yet always mindful of the potential for betrayal. They discovered tools and treasures, learned songs and legends, and shared their own tales of gods and ancestors. Each evening, they gathered around the fire, recounting the day's adventures, weaving the new experiences into the ever-growing tapestry of their sagas. It was during one of these nights, beneath a sky alive with stars and auroras, that Eric felt the presence of the gods more keenly than ever. Odin, the All-Father, seemed to whisper on the wind, reminding him of the courage, wisdom, and cunning required to survive. Thor, the Thunderer, seemed to rumble in the distance, his voice carried through the mountains and forests, a promise of protection and power. Eric closed his eyes, letting the sounds and energies of the land, sea, and sky wash over him. He knew that every decision, every battle, and every encounter would become part of saga, not just for him, but for all who followed. They would face storms, starvation, treachery, and the ever-present edge of death itself. Yet each hardship, each triumph, was stitched into the fabric of their story. The Vikings believed that life was fleeting, but honor and legacy were eternal. And so, with the rising sun casting long shadows over the land, Eric and his men prepared to continue their journey, unaware of the challenges that awaited and the legends that would be born from them. Even now, centuries later, if you listen to the winds sweeping across the fjords, if you watch the waves crashing against the northern shores, you can almost hear the long ships gliding through the night, the voices of Vikings chanting sagas that refuse to be forgotten. Their stories, like the sea, are endless, wild, untamed, and eternal. The cold wind bit at their faces as Eric and his crew pressed further into the rugged landscape. The fjords stretched endlessly before them, dark waters reflecting jagged cliffs that seemed to pierce the sky. Every shadow might conceal danger. Every sound might be a warning. Yet the Vikings moved with the confidence of those born to face the unknown. The days passed in a rhythm of vigilance, exploration, and preparation. They hunted, fished, and gathered supplies, always aware that rivals could strike without warning. The Norse believed the world was alive, that spirits lingered in rivers, trees, and mountains, watching, judging, sometimes aiding, sometimes punishing. Eric felt their presence in the shiver of leaves, the flash of sunlight on water, and even in the distant cries of seabirds. It was on a morning like any other that the first sign of true peril appeared. From the forest, dark shapes emerged, a rival clan, armed and fierce, ready to claim the territory and resources for themselves. The air grew tense, a silent heartbeat before chaos erupted. Shields were raised, axes gripped tightly, and war cries echoed across the fjord. Eric led his men with precision. Years of training, experience, and instinct guided their movements. They fought not only for survival, but for honor, knowing that every victory would be woven into the sagas recounted around fires for generations. The battle was brutal, each clash of steel and shield ringing like thunder across the cliffs. Yet through courage and strategy, Eric's crew prevailed. The rival warriors fled, leaving their spoils behind, and the Vikings secured both the land and their legacy. But danger was never fully vanquished. Even as they celebrated, the forest seemed to watch, the winds whispered warnings, and Eric sensed a deeper challenge looming, one not of men, but of forces older and stranger than any mortal had faced. That evening, as the auroras painted the sky with flickering green and purple, a strange glow appeared near a rocky outcrop. Curious, Eric approached, finding an ancient stone circle partially buried in moss and sand. The carvings were unlike anything he had seen, depicting beasts, warriors, and gods intertwined in battle and harmony. The air hummed with energy, and the Vikings instinctively felt both awe and fear. Suddenly, a low growl rolled across the stones, and shadowy figures emerged. Wolves, but larger, more cunning than ordinary beasts. Their eyes glowed like embers, and their movement was deliberate, almost intelligent. The Vikings formed a circle, shields locked, weapons raised. Eric remembered the teachings of the elders and the whispers of the gods. Courage and wisdom must walk together. The battle was tense and swift. The wolves circled, probing for weakness, while the Vikings countered with disciplined strikes. One by one, the creatures fell or retreated, leaving the circle silent once more. Eric knelt among the stones, feeling the residual energy and realizing that they had encountered something sacred, a trial from the land itself.